Is it dangerous for my teenage child to work out? This is Dr. Dan, board certified pediatrician. Let's talk about when teenagers come in asking, what's the best way to get me to work out and get big? This is a more and more common question because I think in the United States in general, we always want kind of the quick fix. Kids are always looking at the way to get through to the next level of athletics, the next level of growth, the next level of how they want their body to change. And this lends itself to a couple different issues. So I have a lot of kids coming in either hiding the question or asking the question about what's safe to do for working out and what isn't. It's really important to recognize as a parent that those questions that are left unasked are not the ones that they're not going to follow up on. Meaning, if you don't ask the question, doesn't mean that they're not going to go out and try things like creatine or pre-workout or do what their friends or what the internet is telling you to do. So let's talk about the three main issues that I find in kids looking out for exercise. One, how old can a child be before they start using weights? Two, what are the safe supplements and are they necessary? And three, what are the dangers? So first of all, this holds for both boys and girls, but in general, girls aren't looking for the size growth, and they're not looking as much for supplements, even the athletes. But this will hold true for everybody. So I'm just going to generalize and talk about it because it's mostly the boys coming in to talk to me. So the first question, when can I use weights? Every parent comes in and asks me, is it safe for my child to use weights? Because I heard it stunts their growth. Weightlifting over the age of 8 in children can be done safely. The reason why it's not, most children, especially teenagers, especially middle school kids, especially middle school boys, all they want to do is see how much they can do. And so they'll end up using the heaviest weight they can possibly use. Not to mention they use very, very poor technique, which lends itself to injury. So it's not that lifting weights isn't good for building muscle and building endurance. Using weights to make your muscles train is actually excellent, but it is very difficult for an 8 through 15-year-old to know how to do it safely. But under observation, weight training, and especially resistance training, I love the resistance bands as a way of doing things, can be done well as long as you have someone showing them the technique. I always talk to teenage boys about the fact that they should be able to use a weight that they can control, meaning they should be able to do long sets and only tire towards the end. But as important there is that they know the techniques they're supposed to be doing. Usually having some sort of athletic trainer, a coach, or a parent observing them is really, really important. The second thing comes up with supplements. And so I tend to ask this question directly to teenage boys, especially the athletes, about what supplements they're considering using. Because the hardest thing about being a boy in middle school is they all want to grow when everybody else is growing. And as we know, puberty is like a time trial rather than a sprint, meaning everyone gets their turn, but it's not always at the same time. So it's hard to see your friends suddenly sprout up and look like they have a wife and 3 kids with beards when you look like a 3rd grader. So they start looking for ways of increasing their muscle mass quickly. They'll constantly ask first, I use those protein shakes or the protein drinks and whey protein supplements. Are those safe? First of all, if they're done safely by the way that they're directed, they are. But the fact is they're also ridiculously expensive. And you can get just as much, if not more, healthy protein from a tuna fish sandwich than you can from adding a spoonful of whey protein to a smoothie that you made out of yogurt. But again, people think that this stuff that comes in a container that costs like $65 is better than the protein that you're getting from meat and fish and nuts and a healthy diet. And that's just not true. It just seems less work intensive to do that way. So a lot of people are using the whey protein supplements. And as soon as I hear that, the next question I'll come up with, especially if I see a child who's looking to get bigger, is, are you using creatine? And they all stare at me because some of them are considering using it, but they weren't ready to have that conversation. So here's the thing about creatine. I'll give you the shortest version I can give you, which is In the United States at present, there are absolutely zero studies on safety in teenage athletes in creatine. But in Europe, in swimmers and in some soccer players, there were some performance studies done on teenagers. And they showed very mild improvements in performance, because that's what creatine does, is it gives you extra energy. Basically it's a battery for your muscles to work longer. And they found that in these teenagers in Europe that use it, the swimmers and the soccer players, they did get a slight increase in performance. And as a side note, they did not note any adverse events. These were not large studies. However, in adults, there are thousands of studies on safety in creatine, and it seems like it is very safe. Now, I know it sounds like I'm condoning creatine in this. I'm not. Creatine is found in meat. It is found in a lot of the foods we have. And very importantly, because there are no safety studies in the younger kids, I don't know what it's going to do to a growing body. And kids are dynamic. They're growing over time. But if I have a 17 or 18-year-old asking me about it, it's a much different conversation than a 13-year-old. A 13-year-old, I'd be like, I don't know what to tell you what it's going to do in puberty. I don't know how much benefit you're going to get from it, and it may cause problems. For those 17 and 18-year-olds, I'll literally tell them, like, as long as you do it by the book, I don't have an issue with it. But again, you can get this from a regular, well-balanced Mediterranean diet that includes meat, fish, and nuts. That leads into the final little bit of supplementation that I go into, which is pre-workout. Stop it. Don't do it. Pre-workout, if you read the ingredients, it's like caffeine, some green tea extract that's actually caffeine, and then a bunch of other amino acids that are supposed to help you, including with like nitric oxide that increases oxygen delivery to your muscles. This is not what you need to do as a teenager before you're exercising. In fact, there are deaths associated with too much caffeine intake before exercising. What I always tell the kid is, why do you need to get your heart rate up, burning more energy before you've even stepped onto the playing field or before you start working out? If you need that kind of motivation, you probably should be looking for another sport. Stay away from the things like Monster drinks, the caffeinated pre-workouts, the Celsius before working out. They will dehydrate you. The nitric oxide dilates up blood vessels and sends blood flow to muscles, but it also sends it away from your heart and away from other areas where you can end up feeling dizzy and having issues with just poor function because of this. So it is not a great idea. So that's the supplementation part. The final things are, what are the dangers of this? The real danger to me is the amount of information the kids are getting on their own. If you see a teenage boy that's looking to get himself healthier, bigger, build muscle, or a teenage girl who's looking to change their body, they're finding this information on the internet, in TikTok, Instagram, and where they're getting it from are 27-year-old influencers telling boys they should cut and bulk as a way of really making their body firm and strong. A teenage boy should never cut. Cutting calories, cutting weight will inhibit their growth. The boy during that time is in a dynamic phase, and if they cut, that's really going to limit their final potential. But they're learning this from a guy who looks like he's in bodybuilding. And so they're trying to listen to them, which is why this is a really important conversation to have openly, so they know the risks. Knowing what your child is exposed to and knowing how to have the conversation is really important, because this is a slippery slope as you go from whey protein to creatine to pre-workout to steroids and beyond, because somebody in the gym is doing that. And you just have to make sure your child knows the risks. So what I tell all my patients is, feel free to send me any question about a supplement that you find. I will tell you if there's information or not. We can discuss the safety. But in the end, the shortest version I can give any good athlete, the greatest thing that has changed professional sports in the last 30 years is excellent nutrition. LeBron James plays basketball into his 40s. Tom Brady was 43 when he won a Super Bowl. They did it by eating healthy. They didn't eat what they wanted to eat. They eat what a chef made them, what they learned would fuel their body correctly. And professional athletes no longer really given the choice of what they eat. They're basically given fuel in a very specific way. And if you give yourself healthy nutrition, exercise safely with good supervision, you will get better results than you would if you were doing supplements. Again, the most important thing you can do, especially if you have other health conditions or other questions, is talk to your pediatrician, because they'll know your health history better than anybody else. And as a parent, if you're worried, I should be too, feel free to come to your pediatrician with those questions about supplements and everything before the problem exists.